Welcome everybody, it's Fiona May from Women on Transition. So welcome today. I want to have a chat to you about the journey that midlife women need to take when you're going through a separation or a divorce. So we have been coaching women for the last 10 years and have over 20,000 ladies in our Facebook group. So at Women on Transition, what we've recognised is that it's really tough and it's challenging for women to actually go through the divorce process. Many ladies find themselves in a situation that they might not have planned for, might not have ever thought it was going to happen to them, might have left their husband after a long relationship, or even maybe it had been happening, the circumstances that led up to her leaving had been a long drawn out process, or it could have been that she was actually left. So, what we tend to think is irrelevant how we got to where we got to. But as a midlife woman going through a divorce, what we need to do is start from wherever we are. And that's where we find ourselves. So I hope this information is going to be really important and critical for you in your healing journey. So I created what I called a map for myself when I went through my midlife divorce. I didn't expect it. I didn't know that, it'd never been something that was talked about because we had a good relationship. So it was more, happened because of more of a midlife crisis situation where, obviously we weren't communicating effectively and we weren't talking about some of those things. So it felt to me like it came out of the blue, but in hindsight and doing my own growth and healing work, I recognized that, there were red flags there and there were warning signs and we both missed them. And, unfortunately, love gets lost along the way very often. I always hear ladies say that, we drifted apart, or, we just stopped communicating, or, we just had nothing in common when the kids left. All of those things are true, but the reality is that, none of that happens overnight. There's always a lead up to it. And when we understand relationships, we understand that relationships go in a cycle and there's 4 stages to the breakdown of a relationship. So if you recognize and you take action, when you start to see signs that your relationship is stressed, then you very well can pull it back. But what happens most of the time is that we don't recognize it, or we're too afraid to rock the boat, or there's a reason why we don't actually take action. Sometimes people don't want to. We might have asked our husband to go to counselling, or, we might have been asked ourselves if we want to go to counselling, and there may have been some resistance there. The other thing is a lot of people do go to counselling and they don't get the outcome that they wanted, for one reason or another. Sometimes when people get to that stage, they feel like they're dragged along to counselling and it's already a done and dusted, scenario. However, they might not have even been honest with themselves, or they might be thinking that they're just appeasing their partner by going to counselling. So very often by the time people get to counselling, it's too late, and because one or both of the partners have already checked out. I believe myself that love gets lost very often, that 2 people who do love each other and have built a beautiful life and family together sometimes still lose their relationships, and that generally is because they're not communicating very well and that they don't know how to do anything more than what they're doing. So they're trying their best, they're using all their skills and tools that they know, but it's not enough. There's things that are underlying issues that become problems, and if problems aren't dealt with, little things become big things. So I thought we'll jump in today and have a look at a bit of a map that I created for myself, because I just knew that I didn't want to stay stuck, and I knew that I needed to take strategic action. The truth is, when we're going through a divorce as a midlife woman, or a midlife man, really. The truth is that there's so many hurdles for us to jump over. It's not just a case of healing our hurt. That's just one part of the journey. So what I recognized when I sat down and I mapped out what I need to do, what I need to learn, what I need to overcome, there was multiple things that, this journey meant that I needed to deal with. So the first thing I recognized was that I needed to get in touch with who I am. I felt lost. I felt like over the years I'd lost myself. So that was a self-discovery journey. So I'm going to share my screen with you now and pull up a infographic just to make it a little bit easier. And we'll be able to have a look at this. Okay, so this is the infographic that I made for myself and how I went through my transitional journey. So the first part of my journey that I recognized that we need to cover is the self-awareness. We need to establish daily rituals. We need to, going through a separation or a divorce is very traumatic. There's no doubt about it. I believe that it's one of the worst things that most women will ever go through. And at that stage, the very initial hurting stages, you need to just get yourself into a daily ritual. You need to have some structure around how you're going to process the pain, how you're going to get through the day, how much you're going to share, what story you're going to tell. It's important to get all these things worked out in this initial stage. And, this is the beginning of a journey. So you need to, prepare yourself and have a support system around you to get you through that part. The second part that I had to, knew that I needed to deal with was I needed to understand how I was showing up in the world, how I was behaving and what was it about me that, I could look at, I could improve. What was it, the reason that I felt like I had a lack of self-confidence? Why was I telling myself the stories that I was telling myself? And I was wondering if any man was ever going to want me again, if I was ever going to be happy, if I was ever going to get into a new relationship, what was my future going to look like? And I had so many things going on in my head. I also was very conscious of the fact that my kids were hurting so much as well. And I wanted to protect them and I wanted to help them with their healing process. So step number 2 that I recognize is that we needed to deal with our core wounds and understand ourselves and be able to love ourselves through this process. So we're not being hard on ourselves, so we're not judging, and that we're actually allowing ourselves the grace to be able to move through this process. The third stage that I recognized was that we needed to reframe. We needed to learn new tools and skills. We needed to make sense of what had happened and not get stuck in the negative. Very often I hear women, laying all the blame with their partner, and the story that they tell is a story that's convenient. And, there's certainly always some truth in it, but there's sometimes also laying the blame with another person and not taking, any responsibility. So we want to look at, reframing the way that we're telling our story. And we also want to have a look at who we're trusting and who we're sharing our story with. And we want to get some frameworks around, that part of our life, what's happened and what we're making it mean. Because if the story we tell ourselves, it's either going to be empowering or disempowering us. And very often it's very easy to go down the disempowering pathway. And we start to think, who's going to want me? And, or we go the other way and we're saying, he's this and he's that and he did this and he took advantage of me and he's a narcissist and he's a, control freak. And reality is that wherever you're at right now, you two were once in love. You were both in a relationship together. So there's always, responsibility, and there's always, part of the breakdown of any relationship involves the two people and reacting and to each other. So we need to get some clarity around what actually happened and what you're making it mean. The next part of the journey is understanding your human needs and understanding what makes you happy, what makes you feel fulfilled, what part of your soul is trying to meet with getting in a relationship with that person in the first place. We need to look at the patterns that run your life, the rules, the values, and the beliefs that you have, and how they're affecting you. Because, what we see very often is, although you're a big girl now and you're in your 50s or 60s or whatever it is, you could be operating, very often you are operating from your little girl shoes. So you're still acting in very many ways as a 5-year-old, 6-year-old who's looking for love, looking for validation, looking to be needed. And because of those behaviors, it's leading you to do things as a woman that isn't going to serve you down the track. So, it's no accident that there's some girls out there dating in their 50s and 60s who are just settling for any man who comes along. Anyone who wants to love them is better than having nobody at all. And that neediness come from when she was a little girl. And so she's got core underlying issues that have to be dealt with so she can change her behavior. You can't just change a behavior. You actually got to change the core beliefs and the values at the others, right back here. So between the results you're getting and your thought pattern, there's some work that we've got to do in there. The fifth part of the process that I recognized for myself was I needed to learn practical psychology. I needed to learn some new lessons and some new tools. And I needed to know how I could effectively do the things that I wasn't good at. I wasn't good at speaking up and having an opinion and advocating for myself. I wasn't good at putting myself first. I wasn't good at having boundaries. I had collapsed boundaries, and I never, even if I wanted to say something, sometimes I would say something, but then I would be swayed, or I would, let it go by the wayside. So I wasn't clear in articulating what I wanted, or speaking up, or having a point of view, or then holding people to account. So I didn't even understand how to set effective boundaries, how to be clear, how to articulate them, and then how to actually carry through on them. So, I wasn't somebody who, my husband and I really, we weren't argumentative. We didn't have conflict. We just went along. We were easygoing, and we didn't want to rock the boat. So very often things were left unsaid rather than said. In other people's relationships, sometimes you've got people who are very reactive, who spark up over anything. So they're constantly in conflict, and everything's, leads to a drama. Other people, do it differently. There's no right or wrong. But what we need to do in this area, this stage of our journey, is to learn new tools and skills so we can practically fix situations. The sixth part of what my journey was to identify and eliminate my limiting beliefs, because I had things that I used to, say and do, and the way I showed up. And these principles, they are what we run our life by. So I had to challenge some of those limiting beliefs that I had. The thought that I couldn't do life on my own, that, I was going to be lonely, that I, didn't know if I would find another partner. I even questioned if I was financially going to be secure, or, be able to earn enough income. Was I going to make it on my own? They were concerns that were worrying me. And, instead of allowing them to stay in my head and to be overthinking things, I had to challenge some of the things that I was telling myself that were negative. And I needed to learn how to reframe those and put a positive context on it. One of the stories I was telling myself was that I was traded in for a younger woman. And that story alone, it sounded it sounded, like it got me some supporters. I became a victim in that story just saying it, because people felt sorry, and, people thought that what he did was wrong. And, and I got some mileage out of that. And I'm not proud of that. But at the time when you're hurting, you don't know any different. And it feels good to have people giving you a little bit of love and support. But that very love and support that you got ends up keeping you stuck, because if people get attention for doing things, it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, they keep doing the same things over and over again. And what I think is really sad is a lot of ladies get stuck in this journey, and they stay stuck because they get supported to be stuck. They get mileage out of being a victim. They get mileage out of telling the same story over and over again. And I don't want you to do that. I want to encourage you to keep processing, keep moving forward, keep healing, keep on a journey. So you just keep getting better and better and better, because it's very common for us to see ladies who have been stuck for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, even 10 and 20 years. They haven't moved on from their divorce. One of the good ways, easy ways for you to tell if you're stuck is if after a few years, what your processing's like. If you are going to meet your ex, do you get triggered? Do you get any emotional reaction? Does he mean anything to you? The thought of your ex at one of your kids' weddings, or on a holiday, or Christmas, like is that trigger you? That's just one of the little things. I was talking to a lady this morning, and I said to her, what's your biggest challenges? And she said, and she got all teary within 2 seconds of talking about it, was the loss of her life, the loss of what she thought she was going to have, the loss of her home, her retirement, the plans that they had made, the fact that she wanted to go traveling, and they thought, she thought that they were going to do all these lovely things. And that's what made her sad. And I said, the reality is you're sad because you've got a past, but you haven't got your new future. For her, it had been 4 years that she was sitting in this sad place, and she hadn't progressed any, beyond that. And I said to her, so, what we've got to do is we've got to map out a new future for you. We've got to have things in there that excite you and make you want to jump out of bed in the morning, that make you want to, whatever the limitations are that are there for you. Maybe you don't have enough money, or maybe you don't have enough confidence, or maybe, you don't have anyone to go with, you don't have any friends, or, maybe you want to be in a beautiful relationship. Whatever it is, we need to identify it. And then we need to map it out, and then we need to create a plan, and then we need to take intelligent, inspired action. That's how we get results. And that's the exciting bit. There's nothing you can tell me that you want that we can't achieve. You've just got to put the work in and have the plan, and taking those, doing those 3 things, the thought, the plan, and the action, that's what gets you results every single time. So, a lot of ladies don't have that. And that's what we need to create for ourselves if we feel that we, don't have a future that we can get excited about. So the next part of what I had to create for myself is I needed to visualize it, and I started to create a plan in my head, thinking what I would like. I started to dream again because I'd stopped dreaming. And then I actually had to create in my mind the picture of what it would look like. And so I started to see myself being where I wanted to be. So that gap from a thought to becoming a reality, I needed to visualize that. And we do this through lots of different activities. But one of our big activities that we do is we create our dream boards. And then from our dream boards, we make that come alive. And so you need to future pace yourself. You need to put yourself in your mind at a place where you want to be. So often I hear ladies say, and it's the most ridiculous thing, you've got to stop and think about this. People say that if the right bloke comes along, then I'm going to get into a relationship. Well, honestly, I want to tell you, if that's what you're thinking, then it's the chances of that happening in our time of our life, for most women, is so minuscule. You can't, if you want to have a beautiful relationship, you cannot wait for someone to come and find you. Because the reality is, for most women, how many eligible single men of the caliber that you want do you come into contact with on a daily basis? Just have a think about that. You will be lucky if you came across one single man a week for most women, and then you've got to, that man is only just one man. He's not necessarily even looking for a partner. He's not necessarily even got anything in common with you, or would in any way make a good partner for you. And I do not ever want to see you settling for scraps, or settling for just somebody who, you know, walks and talks and's got two legs. That is not the partner that we want for you. We want you to actually call in and bring into your life a partner who meets you on every level. And to do that, you've got to be so clear about what you want. You've got to be so clear about who you are and what you're prepared to give. You've got to be so clear about, you know, what this person is going to be and who they're going to be in your life, and how you're going to communicate and how you're going to behave towards each other. You need to understand all of those wonderful things that makes a beautiful relationship. So there's lots of work to do around that. But this part that I recognize for myself, part 7, was to get that crystal clear in my head what I wanted, what were my negotiables, what were my non-negotiables, and who I was going to be, how I was going to be living my life. Because what I knew is, if I wanted to get a top guy, a really good, caring, loving, compassionate, you know, authentic, loving, kind, if that's the partner that I wanted to attract, well, I thought about what would he want for himself. If he was a top guy, what would he want for himself as a partner? And I thought, well, he's going to actually want someone who's authentic, someone who's kind, someone who's loving, someone who's compassionate, someone who's vulnerable, someone who can balance their energy, someone who sees his greatness, someone who doesn't carry hurt from the past, someone who's completed their past, who has a good family, who has their finances in control, who has their career, you know, mapped out. That's what he's going to want, exactly what I want. And I thought, well, you know, it just stands to reason. And yet here I was, initially hurt, broken, sad. Life was a bit of a friggin' mess, thinking, oh my God, I just want a man to come and love me. But when you look at it from that place, who would I be attracting if I brought a partner into my life at that stage? The only man who would be appealing to me, who I would be appealing to, the only man I would be appealing to was a man who wanted something from me, who wanted to either give me and fix me and heal me, or take from me. And him to be in that place would have meant that he also was carrying his wounds. He also had his baggage, because what I learned as I grew and as I developed and as I healed was, even when you get emotionally healthy, you become much more emotionally intelligent. You become more conscious and much more, you know, open to what the reality is as far as attracting a beautiful partner. I realized that, you know, like attracts like. And if I want to have that partner, I also need to meet him at that place. I need to elevate myself. I need to elevate my own standards of what I've been accepting. I can't, you know, let myself off the hook and not be showing up as my best self. I need to deal with all of those things that I need to do before I'm even ready to date, before I'm ready to bring someone into my life. I wanted to make sure my kids were, you know, healthy and back on track and had dealt with the divorce. I wanted to make sure that I had no emotion around, you know, our loss of our relationship, that I was okay with my ex, and that I could, you know, I wasn't making nasty or sarcastic remarks every time his name was mentioned, or putting the kids in uncomfortable situations. I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to bring a man into my life when I didn't have my life in order. And, they're the greatest things we can do, because when we elevate our own standards of what we're accepting from ourselves, when we do meet an amazing man, it's just easy to be in relationship with them. If they've done their work, they've got their life in order, then the only thing we've got to concentrate on as a couple is our relationship. Whereas if you meet someone and their life's a mess, it's all chaotic, and they're trying to have a relationship with you as well as deal with all the other stuff, I mean, you're setting yourself up for failure from the very beginning. So, just be mindful and conscious of when you're ready to date, and then how you're preparing yourself to be ready for that next part of your life. So the next part of my journey that I knew that I needed to go on was I needed to put into practice everything that I'd been learning, and how I needed to heal, and I needed to be complete with my past, and that I needed to put in place my, all of those, being able to understand why and how my relationship broke down. It didn't just break down overnight. The stories that I told myself initially about my husband having a midlife crisis, leaving me, meeting a bar girl, and, it was totally unexpected for me, and it was unexpected. I never expected it. But the reality was, if I had been paying attention, and if I knew, and if I was emotionally healthy, I would have seen all those warning signs, when he started to pull back, when he started to take, a real interest in his own appearance, building himself up, when he started to emotionally withdraw, put his walls up, not be interested, when he started to get really selfish. All of those things were clues, and yet I didn't pick up on him at the time, and what I recognized was he was lonely in the relationship, the same as I was lonely in the relationship. We had, lots going on. We were busy, we were successful, we had lots of staff, we had a great business, we had kids, and, we were just going through the motions of keeping everything, operational, but we weren't connecting in with each other. We weren't taking that time out to, do the things that were important. So we were connecting as a couple, and we literally drifted apart. And in that, to get significance, my husband wanted somebody to acknowledge him and to see his greatness. And he believed at that stage that, I didn't need him, that, I was successful. He had done his job. The kids were older, and it was time for him to go and find, a new life. And in that new life, he wanted, as a male in his masculine, they like to have a female who needs them, who wants them, who they can contribute to their life. That is genetics, and it's the yin and the yang, positives and negatives, masculine, feminine. That's what creates the chemistry. That's polarity. And we had lost that. We were both operating in our masculine, and so the polarity had gone out of our relationship. So he thought that I didn't need him anymore. And the truth was that I loved him. I didn't want our relationship to fail. But, that drive of being significant for a man, that drive can make people do things that are against their values. So people will actually break their own values to meet their human needs. So that was a really important lesson for me, was understanding my human needs and what was driving me. And my needs were not necessarily healthy either, because I was being driven to prove myself and be successful and earn money and, and get recognition. And, my significance was driving me at that stage. And I didn't know any of that. My husband's significance came when he met, a bar girl who loved him long time, and needed him to save her and be important in his life, and it gave him a sense of direction and excitement, and gave him the significance that he was searching for, that he didn't feel that he was getting from me, because we weren't connecting at that level. So regardless, we were very good friends. We always have been very good friends, and we're friends again now. But the truth was, we lost love. We had a beautiful relationship and we lost it because we stopped being committed to each other. And all of this, what I'm talking about, there was no logical conversation to ourselves or even between each other. It was all subconscious. We were being driven by our subconscious thoughts and beliefs and rules. And we made decisions and actions to meet our inner voice, not our outer voice. I hope you understand what that all means. But that's the psychology. So that's why I always believe that we need to learn, practical psychology, and then we need to apply it and adopt it into our life. The next part of my journey that I needed to take myself on was to rediscover, not only who I am, but it's what I want for myself, what I want my future to look like, who I want to be. And I also needed to learn what healthy relationships are, what a healthy man is going to turn up like, how he's going to act, and where I find these amazing, magnificent men that we talk about. And, that was the next part of the journey. That I really needed to understand how you connect. I needed to understand about polarity. I needed to understand about the masculine and the feminine and the play and chemistry and how you keep that alive. I needed to learn how to step back out of my dominance and control and masculinity, and how I could balance my energy to step into being feminine, being soft, being loving, and most importantly, allowing my partner to do things for me that I could just relax into, even though you can do everything. So many women are so strong, they're so capable, they're so independent, and most of them have become like this because they had to be like this. Even when they were married, they had to do more than their fair share of parenting and organizing and earning income and all of those things. So that makes them lean towards their masculine energy. When you're in a healthy relationship, it's normal and natural for us women to also want to be able to relax into the relationship, to have a partner who shoulders some of that responsibility, who steps up and protects us and leads the way. We don't always have to be the driver in every situation. And in a relationship, what's got polarity, we want our partner to take the lead, and we want to be able to have a beautiful co-creative relationship. That means we're both contributing, that we're mindful and we're conscious of our relationship, and we navigate it together. We deal with conflicts, we talk about things, we don't sweep things under the rug. So many ladies, it wasn't so much the case for me, because my husband and I were never, we were always kind to each other, and we, were respectful of each other. But very often the ladies that I deal with, so many of them don't even know what is a healthy way to be treated. Many of them, were in relationships what were, emotionally or financially controlling or dominating or abusive. And often there was even some physical harm. And none of that is acceptable. None of that is what you would deem as a healthy relationship. And the level of toxicity in relationships varies. But, our stats that we look at are about 83% of relationships are deemed to have, to be toxic in one way or another. And so that means 83% of the population don't even know what it's like to be in a beautiful, nurturing, loving relationship. So, I had to take time out and reassess. A lot of our things in our relationship were just they were not talked about. They were swept under the rug. And so that does not mean that that's healthy. It actually means that when people aren't, dealing with things, they then get resentful. Very often when you're a people pleaser, you're running around pleasing everybody else, but you don't please yourself. And you do that and you do that and you do that till you get to the stage that you think, I'm sick of this. Nobody's treating me, looking after me. I doing everything for everybody else. And, then that leads to resentment. You feel like you're being taken advantage of. And that's not healthy either. So, it doesn't, at the end of the day, there's 8 different personality behavior traits that most people fall into. Understanding every one of those traits, understanding which one is applicable for you as the main one, understanding which one is applicable for your partner, and then being able to navigate and together and talk about and create rules and boundaries around the way that you're going to communicate. That's the exciting thing about a healthy relationship, because a healthy relationship is where you should be able to do all that as a couple. So they were the 9 things that I identified for myself was, what I needed to do to get through my divorce. And as part of those 9 things, as I grew and as I built myself back up, I then had to look at, and address the things like my career, my finance, my future relationships, how my kids, and I needed to do things like think about financially protecting myself before I get into my next relationship, making sure that I'm not got my assets on the line, or I'm going to be, in a situation where that you can be abused in any way. You need to think about so many things as you're going through this transitional journey. It's not just one little piece of the pie. And that's where I find, a lot of people who I work with, they've done years of therapy, or they've read self-help books, or they've gone to counselors, psychologists, or, psychiatrists. They deal with a piece of the puzzle. They don't deal with the whole puzzle. And to get you from where you are to where you want to be, that's a really big gap. And it's a gap that we just don't ordinarily, no one's ever taught us the tools and the skills that we need to be able to go from one side to the other. So this is the journey that I took. And, after I did it for myself, I was amazed with what I learned, how different my life was, how I started to, believe in myself and trust myself. And I had an action plan, and I started to move forward and make really good progress. I knew in my heart that I wanted a new partner. I wasn't prepared to, think and accept that, I wasn't going to leave that to fate. I knew in my business life, if there was ever a challenge, or if I wanted to get an outcome, I just needed to be strategic. I needed to plan it. I needed to map it out, and I needed to work through it step by step. And I got the results. So I had evidence that that works. And I thought, well, if it works in business, and it works in sport, and it works in your career, why can't it work in relationships? And so, I decided in my mind that I wanted a beautiful partner, and that I visualized what I wanted him to look like, who I wanted him to be, how I wanted him to show up. And then I worked out who I needed to be. And all of these pieces of the puzzle came together. So after I did it for myself, I put it into an actual learning system, and I made it a step-by-step system. And that's what I call the Shine program today. So the Shine program is actually my journey. And, one of the things that I've always believed through my whole life is, if you want to do something and you want to get, the results, find a coach or a mentor who has done what you want to do. I think that, you need to walk your talk. It's very different saying that this is what you need to do, and I've read it out of a book, or I've bought a coaching practice, or, I did a coaching or life coaching course, and I know what to do for you now because, I read about it. it just doesn't cut the mustard with me. If I'm going to do something, I want a coach who has demonstrable evidence and proof that what they're saying is true. I want to do it as quickly and easy as I can. I don't want to be testing things out. I want something that I know is absolutely going to work. It becomes a plug and play. If I show up, I do the work, I'm going to get the results. And I like to operate like that in all areas of my life. And so that's exactly what the Shine program is. So if that, what I'm talking about, if it resonates with you, if you're looking for a pathway forward, if you have gone through a separation and divorce and you are not where you want to be, you're not getting the outcomes, well, I'm very confident to tell you that we can help you. I'm Fiona May from Women on Transition. Look us up, do your due diligence. I'm very transparent. Check out our results on our website from all the girls, hundreds and hundreds of girls been through our programs, and have a look what they say. That's the best thing, because you can't make that stuff up, and if what we do, it sounds good to you, jump on a call and we will have a chat. So Sandra, Cody and I do the calls. We're all amazing. We get to the bottom of your problems. We want to know about you and your life, and we will tell you honestly if we can help you. If we don't think we're the best fit for you, or it's not possible for you to do our programs, we will steer you in the direction of something that is going to give you the outcome that you want. And, not everything is right for everybody. Our programs mean that you need to be coachable, you need to be committed, you need to be wanting to show up and do some real serious work, and you want to have an amazing community around you, and you want to get good results. So they're the people we can help. If you're a victim, or if you're committed to staying stuck, if you're a big storyteller who doesn't, just makes excuses and isn't committed, and it's not a priority in your life to deal with these things, then we're probably not going to be a good fit together, because we put a lot into, your outcomes and wanting you to be successful. Anybody we bring into our program, we want them to be our next success story. We have 100% commitment and intention that you will finish your program. There will be some times that we will need to give you a hug, and there will be some times that we need to give you a push and get you out of your own way, because a lot of the ladies we work with are quite strong. They're, successful in other areas of their life, but they're just not getting this part right. And it's not their fault. It's just that they don't know the tools and the skills to get them moving along and getting it nailed. So we can help you do that if that's what you want. So anyway, that's me, that's my journey, and I hope that, I hope it's been of some value to you, because the main thing I want to tell you is healing after a separation and divorce is not just about doing one thing, just doing counseling or just reading a book or watching some YouTube videos. None of that is going to deal with the core underlying issues that are holding you back and stopping you from having the life that you want. All of the little pieces of the puzzle need to be aligned. They all need to be dealt with so you can get the outcome that you want. And if you leave out parts of that puzzle, it comes back into play down the track. You might get into a nice relationship, but then you're getting triggered all the time, or you're having trust issues, or, you're not being able to be vulnerable and to share your feelings and to communicate effectively. All of that is going to unravel anything you create. And that's traumatic. And you go through another separation and divorce, and then that just hurts you. And I don't want that for you. I don't want to see you suffer anymore. I believe that this is a beautiful time of our life for us to recreate and create something special for us. And I believe that's, our birthright. Just because we went through a relationship loss, there shouldn't be any shame or guilt wrapped around that. We should be able to shake ourselves off, get ourselves back in state, move forward and create the rest of our life, so we're living our best life. And, I understand there's no guilt, there's no shame, there's no judgment. Doesn't matter what you've been through. We've seen it all, and we can help you. We're very confident in the work we do. So if it resonates with you, look us up, reach out, book a free call. If not, I wish you all the best on your journey, and I hope you find someone or something that helps you and you get your outcome anyway. So love to you all. Bye for now.